This is a broadcast I never thought I'd have to make. If you're hearing this, if you're still listening, then understand what I'm about to tell you is not a theory, not a hypothetical, not a dramatization. This is real, and it is happening. It started with an anomaly, a minor blip in astronomical observations, something unusual but not unprecedented. A team at the Cerro Tololo Observatory in Chile noticed a deviation in the infrared signatures they were tracking beyond Jupiter's orbit. At first, they thought it was a sensor glitch, maybe an undiscovered comet breaking apart, maybe just another near-Earth object that would slip past us like so many before it. But then, the same anomaly appeared in data from Mauna Kea in Hawaii, then Arecibo, then the ESA's Gaia Observatory. Within hours, the entire global network of astrophysicists was running calculations, tracing the object's velocity, its trajectory, its density. And then came the confirmation: an asteroid, a true behemoth, over 50 kilometers across, larger than any celestial body that has ever come this close to our planet in recorded history. This is not some house-sized rock that would streak across the sky as a harmless fireball. This is not another Tunguska, not a Chelyabinsk airburst, not even a Chicxulub-sized impactor. This is something worse. Something that does not just threaten cities or countries or continents. This is something that threatens the very concept of survival on this planet. A planet killer. The initial projections were cautious. NASA and the ESA worked through the night to refine their models. Could it miss? Could it be captured by Jupiter's gravity and slingshot away? Was there any possibility, any at all, that this was just another close call? But every new equation, every refined calculation, every updated trajectory led to the same grim answer. There would be no miss, no deflection. The asteroid, moving at an estimated speed of 30 kilometers per second, would intersect Earth's orbit in approximately 270 days. And when it did, there would be no coming back from it. This is what I'm telling you now, my listeners. I don't have answers. I don't have a way to make this sound easier to hear. All I have is the truth. And the truth is that as of this moment, we are all living under the shadow of a cosmic executioner. Of course, governments were informed before we were. High-level meetings took place in secret. Classified intelligence reports were exchanged. And when the news finally reached the public, it did not come from the official channels. It leaked. First as whispers on online forums, dismissed as the usual fear-mongering, then as an intercepted internal memo from NASA that spread like wildfire. And then, well, they had no choice but to go public. The White House, the United Nations, the European Space Agency, China's CNSA, Russia's Roscosmos, they all confirmed it within hours. The asteroid has been officially designated Persephone 99, named ironically after the queen of the underworld. Ironic because that is what she will bring. An underworld. A world plunged into darkness and death. And yet right now, as I sit here in this small, dimly lit studio, watching the feed from observatories around the world, it still does not feel real. It is nothing but a speck on our telescopes. A tiny, distant dot, reflecting the faint light of the sun as it moves ever closer. It is silent. It is unfeeling. It does not care about us, about our fears, about our hopes or dreams. It simply follows the laws of physics. Cold, uncaring physics that will bring it to us whether we like it or not. The scientific community is still processing it. I've listened to press conferences where the best minds of our generation speak in measured tones, voices shaking just slightly as they attempt to sound in control. They talk about impact probabilities, about mass energy equations, about planetary defense initiatives. But beneath it all, I can hear what they are not saying. There is no stopping it. Let me put this in perspective. The asteroid that ended the reign of the dinosaurs was roughly 10 to 15 kilometers across. It unleashed an explosion equivalent to billions of Hiroshima bombs, igniting firestorms, triggering earthquakes, sending tsunamis surging thousands of miles inland. The atmosphere choked with soot and sulfur, blocking out the sun for years. plunging the world into a deep freeze that eradicated nearly 75% of all life. That asteroid was 1/3 the size of Persephone 99. We are looking at an impact so massive that it will not just destroy the impact site. It will send shockwaves tearing through the crust, rupturing fault lines, boiling oceans, and altering the atmosphere in ways that no computer model can fully predict. The force of the collision will be enough to liquefy entire regions of the Earth's surface, to launch enough debris into the sky that even those who survived the initial impact will soon wish they hadn't. And yet, despite this looming certainty, the world is still eerily calm. It is the calm of people who do not yet understand, who still believe that someone, somewhere, will find a solution. That our leaders, our scientists, our technology will save us as they always have before. But I can feel it. The tension, the unease, the whisper of something ancient in the back of the collective human mind. The part of us that has always feared the sky. The part that remembers, in the deepest recesses of our evolutionary past, what happens when the stars fall. Right now, as I here speaking to you, there are thousands of telescopes pointed at the heavens, thousands of eyes watching that tiny, silent speck of doom as it approaches. Soon, it will be visible to the naked eye, growing brighter night after night, until no one will be able to ignore it, until it is no longer an abstract threat, but a burning, glowing omen of what is to come. We do not know where it will strike, not yet. The calculations are still being refined, but in the coming weeks, we will know. We will know which part of the world will see the fire first, which oceans will boil, which lands will be swallowed in an instant. And as that information is revealed, I will be here. I will be speaking to you as long as the airwaves allow, as long as there is power in this station. For now, we wait. We count the days. We listen to the quiet before the storm. This is your broadcaster. Stay tuned. If there's a world left to hear me, I'll be here. You're still listening. That means you're still here. That means the world hasn't ended yet. But it feels like it already has, doesn't it? It feels like something vital, something fundamental has cracked beneath our feet. Even though the streets still look the same, the sky still stretches wide above us, and the sun still rises every morning. But we know. We know what's coming, and the weight of that knowing is suffocating. It's been days since the official confirmation, days since the world was forced to accept the impossible truth that an asteroid larger than anything in recorded history is heading straight for us, and there is no stopping it. At first, the governments tried to manage the information, tried to keep people calm, tried to assure us that plans were being made, that solutions were being worked on. But the truth seeps through the cracks, and the cracks are everywhere now. The world is holding its breath. There is a strange, unnatural silence in cities that should be bursting with life. The hum of traffic still lingers, but it's different, subdued, erratic, broken by the sound of sirens and distant arguments that seem to happen more and more often. The usual rhythms of everyday life are unraveling. People still go to work, but their hands tremble as they type reports that will never be read, as they serve coffee to customers who sit staring out of windows, their cups untouched. Schools remain open, but the children sit in hushed classrooms, absorbing nothing, their teachers speaking in soft, shaky voices, eyes flickering to their phones every few minutes. What do you teach a child when the future has been stolen from them? How do you prepare them for a world that might not be there? In the beginning, denial was the most common reaction. People clung to skepticism, to disbelief, grasping at any excuse, any thin thread of doubt that this could be a mistake. NASA has been wrong before, they'd say. The government is hiding the truth. This is all fear-mongering. They'll figure something out. But that stage didn't last long. Not when the calculations were everywhere, when even amateur astronomers with backyard telescopes could see the growing speck in the night sky. The deniers went quiet. and in the void they left behind, fear settled in like a thick, choking fog. The markets collapsed first. Stocks plummeted within hours of the announcement. The world's financial backbone shattered as investors and corporations realized that, in the face of total planetary annihilation, money had no meaning. The dollar, the euro, the yen, all of it became just numbers on a screen, numbers that meant nothing when the countdown to impact had already begun. Banks tried to enforce withdrawal limits, but it didn't matter. Panic had already taken root. People stormed ATMs, emptied accounts, filled suitcases with stacks of cash that suddenly felt as worthless as the paper it was printed on. What do you buy when there's no future left to plan for? The first wave of riots followed soon after. Not everywhere, not yet, but in places where despair bled into anger, where survival instincts flared too quickly. Some cities saw looting sprees, stores broken into and emptied as people scrambled for supplies. Not for resale, not for profit, but for the sheer primal need to feel prepared for whatever came next. Food, water, medicine, guns, things that people believed would give them an edge in the days to come. But there is no real edge when the sky itself is coming down to kill you. And yet, the world hasn't collapsed completely. Not yet. There is something eerie about this in-between state we exist in now. This limbo between the world we knew and the world we are about to lose. Governments are still in control. The military has been mobilized in some places, standing guard outside emergency resource depots, maintaining a thin veneer of order. The power is still on. The internet still works. Planes still fly. The world still turns, pretending it isn't staring into the abyss. But the signs are there. Look closely and you'll see them. The cracks in normalcy are widening. People who haven't prayed in decades sit side by side with the faithful, heads bowed, murmuring desperate words to gods they abandoned long ago. Some seek forgiveness, some seek a miracle, some just want to feel like something, anything, is listening. Elsewhere, the opposite reaction unfolds. Cults are sprouting up like weeds. Doomsday prophets taking to the streets, screaming that this is divine punishment, that salvation lies in blood, in fire, in surrender. Some preach ascension, urging followers to shed their earthly bodies before the asteroid can do it for them. There have already been mass suicides. Entire families found cold and lifeless in their homes, their televisions still tuned to breaking news. And still, the governments tell us to remain calm. Still, they hold their press conferences, standing behind podiums in front of flags that no longer matter, speaking in rehearsed, careful tones about containment of public distress and preventative measures against misinformation. They assure us that space agencies across the world are working tirelessly on solutions, that hope is not yet lost. But I can hear it in their voices. I can see it in their eyes. They are afraid too. And maybe they should be. Maybe we all should be. Because even if, by some miracle, they find a way to stop this, if the asteroid is diverted, destroyed, if the world is spared, something fundamental has already changed. We have seen with perfect clarity the fragility of everything we built. And even if the impact never comes, will we ever be able to forget how close we came to the edge? Some people have started leaving the cities, packing up whatever they can carry and fleeing, not to anywhere in particular, just away, into the wilderness, into the mountains, into the most remote places they can find, as if distance will protect them, as if the asteroid will care where they stand when the fire falls from the sky. But maybe it isn't about safety. Maybe it's just about dying on their own terms, in places that still feel untouched by the hands of civilization. I don't know what's worse, the ones who flee or the ones who sit still, waiting. And then there are those who refuse to acknowledge any of it, the ones still going to work, still making dinner reservations, still planning weddings as if the next year will exist, as if the world hasn't already started counting down. I can't decide if it's admirable or just delusion. But here's the truth, listeners. I am here. I am watching. And I will not lie to you. The world is still standing, but I can feel it trembling beneath our feet. The asteroid grows closer with every hour, every minute, every breath we take. You may not see it yet, but soon you will. Soon, every night sky will bear its terrible mark, glowing like an open wound against the stars. We are waiting, watching, holding our breath, but we cannot hold it forever. This is your broadcaster. I am still here, and as long as the airwaves carry my voice, I will tell you the truth. If you're still listening, it means you're still here. And if you're still here, it means you're still waiting. We are all waiting, waiting for a miracle, waiting for the end, waiting for something, anything, to change this fate we've been shackled to. But time is running out, and every hour that passes drags us closer to the inevitable. The countdown has begun. The asteroid has a name now, Icarus 1. Fitting, isn't it? Named after the boy who flew too close to the sun only to fall screaming into the sea. But this time it is not the sun we have defied. It is the cold, vast emptiness of the universe itself, and the punishment for our hubris is coming, faster than any of us can comprehend. Every news channel, every broadcast, every press conference is plastered with the same numbers, trajectory models, impact probabilities, time estimates. They have boiled our future down to cold, indifferent calculations, each decimal place carving deeper into our collective despair. There is no doubt anymore. No more false hope, no more speculation. The numbers don't lie. The asteroid is coming, and we are running out of time. NASA, the ESA, Roscosmos, CNSA, every space agency in the world has turned its eyes to the sky, working around the clock to refine the calculations, to confirm and reconfirm every last detail of our impending doom. They release updates in carefully chosen words, speaking in the dry, emotionless tones of scientists who have spent their lives training to be objective. But I can hear the cracks in their voices. They know what this means. And if you're listening now, you know too. They estimate impact in 14 weeks, just over 3 months. That is all the time we have left before the sky falls, before the earth shakes, before the fire consumes us. It is not enough time, not enough to prepare, not enough to say goodbye, not enough to do anything except wait. The asteroid is visible now, a faint but growing smudge in the night sky, moving against the tapestry of stars. It started as just a whisper on the telescopes, a speck of light glimpsed only by those who knew where to look. But it is no longer just a whisper. Soon, even a child will be able to point up and say, "There." That is where the end is coming from. Astronomers describe it in clinical terms. Its size, its composition, its velocity. A behemoth of nickel and iron spanning 30 kilometers across, moving at a speed of 20 kilometers per second. A mountain of death hurtling toward us at 72,000 kilometers per hour. Numbers, data, facts, as if facts can shield us from what is coming, as if knowing the precise impact force, roughly 100 million megatons of TNT, makes it any easier to accept. But what does that even mean, really? How do you quantify extinction? How do you measure the weight of an entire species knowing that it is about to be erased? They say it will hit somewhere in the Pacific, though the margin of error is still wide enough that no one can say for certain. If it strikes the ocean, the tsunami it generates will be unlike anything in Earth's history. A wave taller than mountains, racing outward at the speed of a jetliner, swallowing continents in hours. But if it lands on solid ground, well, we won't have to wonder for long. The impact itself will be enough. Enough to crack the crust, to send molten rock into the sky, to ignite the atmosphere itself. Enough to turn day into night, to smother the sun, to bury civilization under a winter that will last for centuries. And yet, the world still pretends that something can be done. The governments continue their meetings. The scientists continue their calculations. The billionaires pour their fortunes into bunkers, into escape plans, into lifeboats for themselves while the rest of us burn. The world's militaries mobilize, not to fight an enemy, but to control their own citizens, to keep the illusion of order intact for just a little longer. But it is slipping. We can all feel it. People are already breaking. There are those who still cling to hope, who believe that if they just prepare enough, stockpile enough, move far enough away, they will somehow survive. They build shelters deep in the mountains, dig into the earth like insects trying to escape the boot that is about to crush them. They hoard food, weapons, medicine, as if any of it will matter when the planet itself becomes unrecognizable. Then there are those who embrace the end with open arms, the ones who see this not as a tragedy, but as a reckoning. The cults grow in number, their followers gathering in forests, in deserts, in ruined churches, chanting prayers to whatever force they believe sent this harbinger of doom. Some wait for ascension, some welcome the fire, some decide not to wait at all. The suicides are increasing, mass deaths, entire families found in their homes, hands clasped together, faces peaceful in a way that the living no longer are. And yet the world pretends. The governments are still here, still making empty promises, still insisting that solutions are coming, that efforts are being made, that there is hope. But we are past that now, aren't we? Hope is a fragile thing, and when it breaks, it cuts deeper than any knife. I see it everywhere, the unraveling, the cracks in the surface of our society, growing wider with every day, every hour, every breath. The streets are emptier, the cities quieter. It is as if the whole world is holding its breath, waiting for the final confirmation, the final moment when there will be no more words left to say. And yet I keep speaking because that is all I can do, because the airwaves are still open, and as long as there are ears to hear, I will tell you the truth, no matter how much it hurts. The countdown has begun. 14 weeks. The asteroid is coming. The world is waiting, and we are running out of time. If you're still listening, then you still believe in something. Maybe you believe in science, in the minds of those who have spent their lives studying the cosmos. Maybe you believe in miracles, in some last-minute intervention from a force beyond our comprehension. Or maybe you simply believe in seeing this through to the end, watching history play out in real time, even as it threatens to erase us all. The world has not stopped moving, even as the shadow of Icarus I grows larger in the sky. The greatest minds of our species are working tirelessly, clawing at every possibility, every remote chance to divert or destroy the behemoth before it makes landfall. They do not sleep, they barely eat. They stare at screens, at equations, at models that shift and change with every new calculation. And they know the odds, but they fight anyway. NASA, CNSA, Roscosmos, agencies that once competed for dominance in the final frontier now stand together as one. Political rivalries, ideological battles, all of it has been stripped away by the weight of what is coming. There's no room for borders in the face of extinction. There is no time for old grudges when the clock is counting down. They have presented their plans, their desperate last-ditch efforts, and each one carries the weight of both hope and futility. Kinetic impactors, massive spacecraft loaded with dense metal, hurled at the asteroid in an attempt to alter its trajectory. Nuclear detonations, explosions at just the right distance, just the right angle, meant to nudge the rock away from its fateful course. Gravity tractors, spacecraft positioned near Icarus I, using their own weak pull to shift it over time. The math is precise, the physics undeniable, but the asteroid is too big, too fast, too close. Kinetic impactors might as well be pebbles against a mountain. The nuclear option carries its own horrors. Detonate too far and nothing happens. Too close and the asteroid could fragment into 1,000 fiery projectiles, each one carrying enough force to level a city. The gravity tractors need time, and that is the one thing we do not have. Still, they build. The factories, the launch pads, the research stations, They hum with a level of urgency the world has never seen before. The first wave of missions is already underway. Satellites repurposed for new calculations, probes launched to analyze the asteroid's surface, automated drones designed to land and drill into the rock, gathering every last bit of data that could make the difference between survival and oblivion. But outside of those walls of progress, the world is not waiting with patience. The panic has reached a new stage, the kind that simmers beneath the surface, where people smile and nod and pretend to carry on, all while the truth eats away at them from the inside. Governments issue reassurances, but they are running out of words. The stock markets have collapsed. Supply chains are disintegrating. The streets in some cities are empty, people choosing solitude over the chaos they know is coming. Others have turned to violence, clawing at whatever remnants of control they can find. There are rumors of ships, secret spacecraft, built not to save the world, but to save them. The elites, the billionaires, those with enough power to secure a seat off this dying rock. The agencies deny it, of course. They insist there are no escape plans, no hidden arcs bound for Mars or the moon or some deep space exile. But the whispers persist, and there are those who would kill for even the possibility of passage. The religious factions are louder than ever. Some still wait for divine intervention, convinced that a force greater than us will stay the asteroid's hand. Others see Icarus One as a cleansing fire, a reckoning long overdue. They preach in the streets, in the ruins of churches, in the underground bunkers where the desperate gather. Some march into the oceans, believing the water will carry them somewhere safe. Others leap from buildings, unwilling to face what is coming. And then there are the ones who do not break. The ones who hold on to hope, however small, however foolish. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, journalists, those who wake up every day knowing that doom is written in the sky, but who fight anyway. Not because they believe they will win, but because trying is the only thing left that makes them human. The second wave of missions has been greenlit. The rockets are being prepared, their payloads assembled with hands that shake from exhaustion but never stop moving. The first of the nuclear warheads will be launched in the coming days, sent to intercept the asteroid at a carefully calculated point in space. If it works, if the angle and force are perfect, we may see a shift, a deviation so small that only the instruments will notice at first, but one that could mean everything. But if it fails, no, we do not speak of failure, not yet. I can hear it in my own voice now, the waver, the unsteadiness. I'm not immune to this. None of us are. Every time I close my eyes, I see it, hanging there in the sky, growing larger, growing clearer, a solid mass where before there was only the void. The night sky is different now. The stars are still there, but they seem dimmer somehow, overshadowed by the intruder that does not belong. The moon shares its space with a ghost, a harbinger, a sentence that has already been written. Soon it will be visible even in daylight. Soon it will be undeniable. But until that moment comes, I will keep speaking, because the rockets have not launched yet, because the warheads have not detonated yet, because we do not know, not yet, if humanity's last stand will mean something. And until we do, we keep fighting, because there is still time, not much, but just enough to try. The rockets have launched. The world watched as plumes of fire and steel tore into the sky, a desperate, fragile hope carried on pillars of smoke. The nuclear warheads, the kinetic impactors, the best of human ingenuity, all aimed at one single point in the cosmos, the doomsday rock hurtling toward us with neither mercy nor hesitation. The scientists at Mission Control held their breath as telemetry data streamed in. Every number, every figure, either an omen of survival or a quiet confirmation of our demise. For hours, the world stood still. The streets, the cities, the homes and shelters, millions of eyes fixed on flickering screens, waiting for the moment that would decide everything. And then the first images came back. The nuclear payloads detonated exactly as planned. Fire bloomed in the void, silent but monstrous, the shock waves rippling out like the hands of a vengeful god. The asteroid was engulfed in a temporary inferno, its dark silhouette swallowed by the light of mankind's most terrifying creation. There were gasps, cheers, people reaching for one another, daring to believe that we had done it, that we had rewritten fate. But the fire faded, the mushroom clouds dissipated, and Icarus I remained. The explosions had scarred it, yes. The surface was pitted, burned, shrouded in a haze of disturbed debris, but it had not stopped. It had not shifted enough. The force had been absorbed into its mass, the energy swallowed by a behemoth that refused to yield. The asteroid was still coming, and now it was closer than ever. The silence that followed was unbearable. The celebrations turned to confusion. Confusion turned to horror, and horror into despair. The new calculations came in, bleak and undeniable. The deviation was so minuscule it may as well have been nothing. The kinetic impactors had shattered upon collision, leaving only shallow craters in their wake. The gravitational tugs were now irrelevant. There was no longer enough time for their gentle pull to make a difference. Every plan, every strategy, every desperate effort had led to the same inevitable outcome. There was no grand announcement, no single moment in which the world was told it was over. The truth bled out slowly, like a wound too deep to clot. The broadcasters hesitated at first, unwilling to say the words aloud, as if voicing them would make them more real. Scientists struggled to keep their composure on live feeds, voices trembling, hands gripping podiums like anchors in a storm. Governments scrambled to draft statements, to offer reassurances that no longer held weight. But the people knew. They saw it in the eyes of those who had placed their faith in reason, in science, in the boundless ingenuity of mankind. They saw the quiet resignation, the hands that trembled with exhaustion, the lips pressed into thin, pale lines. And in that shared silence, the world came to understand something so simple, so profound, that it did not need to be said. We had lost. The panic that followed was unlike anything before. The first wave had been fear of the unknown, of possibilities, of what might happen if we failed. But now it was certain. The asteroid was coming. The streets erupted into madness, people who had held on to reason now casting it aside. Some abandoned their homes and fled, though there was nowhere to run. Others gathered supplies as if survival were still an option, as if there was something to prepare for beyond the end itself. The suicide rates spiked overnight. Bridges, rooftops, gas-filled garages, any means of escape from the inevitable. Parents whispered words of comfort to their children, even as their own voices wavered with terror. The hospitals were overrun, not with the sick, but with the hopeless. People begging for some last-minute salvation, for someone to tell them there was still a way. And yet, among the chaos, there were those who simply stopped moving, stopped caring, stopped fighting. They sat in parks, in churches, in dimly lit rooms with no more prayers left to say. The realization of death had settled into their bones, not as a horror, but as an acceptance. There would be no warnings when the time came, no sirens, no alerts. Just a moment, one final moment, and then nothing. The world's leaders held emergency meetings, but there was nothing left to discuss. Martial law was declared in some regions, but enforcement quickly crumbled. The rich retreated it into underground bunkers, their gilded tombs built in the hope that they might outlast the storm. But even they knew, deep down, that there would be no refuge from what was coming. Religious leaders claimed this was prophecy fulfilled. Scientists stared at their equations, their screens, their failure, knowing that history would remember them as the last minds of a doomed civilization. Families held each other tighter. Strangers wept in each other's arms, and for the first time in human history, there was no tomorrow to plan for. I sit here now, in this small, darkened room, staring at my microphone, knowing that these words may be some of the last ever spoken to an audience. And yet I keep speaking, because what else is left? The asteroid is close enough now that you can see it without a telescope. Just a faint blotch in the night sky, growing larger with every passing hour. Soon it will be a second moon, an omen that cannot be ignored. Soon, its presence will blot out the stars. And after that, I don't know. No one does. The failed salvation is behind us. The end is ahead. And all we can do now is wait. This is it. The final hours. The last night humanity will ever know. No dawn will follow this darkness. No morning sun will rise to warm the earth. Time itself has lost all meaning. The clocks still tick, the hands still move, but there is nowhere left to go. Nothing left to wait for. Only the impact. Only the end. The asteroid is no longer a distant object in the sky. It is a leviathan, a mountain of death that looms larger with every passing second. I stepped outside earlier, just to see it with my own eyes, to feel the weight of it in the sky. And my God, I cannot find the words. It is monstrous. A second moon, but darker, crueler, an abomination that does not belong among the stars. It stretches across the heavens like a wound in space, its jagged, uneven surface catching the last glimmers of light before it plunges us into oblivion. The atmosphere around it is beginning to burn, a fiery halo forming as it tears through the layers of our sky. It is no longer a question of when. The countdown is no longer measured in weeks or days. We have hours, perhaps less, and the world knows it. Cities are ablaze, some from rioters, some from those who chose to go out in a final act of defiance, burning everything they built before the heavens can take it from them. The streets are littered with abandoned cars, suitcases flung open, the remnants of failed escape plans scattered across the pavement. Airports stand eerily silent. No more flights, no more departures. There is nowhere left to run. The power grid is failing in waves. Some places have gone completely dark, swallowed by the night, while others flicker desperately, clinging to the last sparks of electricity before the surge dies for good. I can hear gunshots in the distance. People are fighting for what I don't know. There is nothing left to fight for. But maybe, for some, violence is the only answer they have left. Others have chosen a quieter path, families locked behind doors, holding one another in silent grief. The churches are full, packed with the devout and the desperate alike, prayers rising into the heavens that will soon be turned to fire. Some whisper that miracles still exist, that something might intervene at the last second. But the scientists have said otherwise. The calculations are absolute. The impact is unavoidable, and faith, no matter how strong, cannot alter the course of celestial mechanics. I wonder how many people are listening to this broadcast right now. I wonder if my words still matter, if they're reaching ears that are too numb with terror to hear them. But I speak anyway, because this is what I have always done. I have told the world stories, and tonight I tell its last. There are no more government addresses, no more speeches, no more declarations. The leaders of the world have fallen silent. Some went into their bunkers, believing they might outlast the inferno. Others simply walked away, shedding their titles like dead skin, choosing to spend their final moments as men and women, not as rulers of nations that will soon be dust. The military has stood down. There is no war left to fight. Some of the soldiers have gone home. Others remain at their posts, not out of duty, but because they don't know where else to go. And then there are the ones who have simply chosen not to see the end at all. Entire buildings filled with those who refuse to wait for the impact. It is a quiet kind of horror, the kind that leaves behind only stillness. No screams, no struggle, just empty homes, vacant streets, a world that is already starting to look like a graveyard. The ocean tides are behaving strangely. The asteroid's gravity is pulling at our world now, distorting the seas, dragging them upward in unnatural swells. Some shorelines are vanishing beneath the water, entire towns sinking as the waves consume them. In other places, the ocean is retreating, drawn back into itself like a breath before the final scream. Animals are fleeing in blind panic, birds scattering from the trees in chaotic flocks, dogs howling at the sky as if they, too, can sense the coming annihilation. The air smells different. There is something heavy in it, something metallic, something wrong. The sky has taken on an eerie hue, the unnatural glow of the asteroid's incoming fire casting everything in strange, flickering light. Shadows stretch long across the ground, twisting unnaturally as if the world itself is warping. There is a sound in the distance, a deep, rolling thunder that does not belong to a storm. It is the sky itself, screaming as something ancient and merciless tears through it. And still I sit here, in this dimly lit station, surrounded by blinking lights and fading signals. This microphone, my last tether to the world, hums softly beneath my fingertips. I wonder who is still out there. Are you alone? Are you with family? Are you waiting in silence, or are you screaming into the void? Are you afraid? Or have you, like so many others, already accepted the inevitable? I don't know how much longer this station will hold. The power is flickering, the equipment running hot. Maybe this will be the last thing I ever say. Maybe my voice will be cut off mid-sentence, swallowed by the static of a dead world. But if you are listening, if there is even one person still out there, still holding on to this one last connection to the human voice, I want you to know, you are not alone. Even in these final moments, even as the sky burns and the earth trembles, even as the last grains of sand slip through the hourglass, you are not alone. And when the fire comes, when the world is turned to ash, when the final echoes of our existence fade into the blackness of eternity, know that we were here, we lived, we mattered, and in the end, perhaps that is all that ever truly counted. It has happened. There was no time to count the final seconds, no time to register the last breath of the world before it was ripped away. One moment, there was silence, an unbearable, suffocating stillness as if the earth itself had closed its eyes. And then, light. A blinding, monstrous eruption of white-hot brilliance that split the heavens open and burned itself into my retinas even through the station's reinforced glass. It was not the glow of fire, not the flicker of a mere explosion. This was something else, something ancient, something cosmic, something beyond anything human eyes were ever meant to witness. The asteroid struck with the force of 1 million nuclear detonations. The impact site, somewhere in the Western Hemisphere, though what does it matter now, vanished instantly. The ground did not shatter, it liquefied, turned to molten fury in a fraction of a second. The very crust of the earth peeled away, vaporized in an instant as if it had never existed. The air ignited. A shockwave, faster than sound, faster than thought, raced outward in every direction, flattening mountains, cities, forests, everything in its path. The very atmosphere screamed as it was displaced, a thunderous roar that no words can ever capture. If hell had a voice, this would be it. I could feel it. Even here, thousands of miles from the point of impact, the station trembled violently. Walls groaned, glass cracked, dust rained down from the ceiling as if the entire structure was weeping. My teeth rattled in my skull, my ribs vibrated with the force of the air itself shuddering apart. I don't know how this signal is still going. I don't know if it will last another minute, another second, but I'm still here, and I will speak for as long as I can. The horizon is ablaze. The firestorm stretches beyond the limits of sight, a wall of flame consuming everything in its wake. It is not a natural fire. This is not the slow, creeping hunger of a wildfire. This is the atmosphere itself igniting, a planetary inferno. Oxygen is fuel, the very air feeding the blaze, turning the sky into a churning sea of fire. Entire continents are burning. The forests, the cities, the fields, all gone in an instant, reduced to ash before their shadows can even finish stretching across the ground. I see the glow reflected in the clouds, or what is left of them. They have turned to steam, boiled away by the sheer heat radiating outward from the impact. The sky is no longer blue. It is a deep, seething red, as if the heavens themselves are hemorrhaging. And then the wind came. The shock wave reached us moments ago, a wall of force so powerful it shattered windows across the station, tore doors from their hinges. I can feel the air being pulled, a great inhalation before the world exhales its last breath. People outside, those who had gathered in the streets, those who had chosen to watch the end instead of hiding from it, were lifted from their feet and hurled away like leaves in a hurricane. Cars tumbled end over end like toys, concrete cracked and split apart, as if the earth itself were rejecting everything built upon its surface. The oceans are rebelling. The asteroid's impact has displaced unimaginable volumes of water, sending tsunamis roaring across the planet. These are not waves, they are walls. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of feet high, they surge inland with merciless speed, devouring entire coastlines, swallowing islands, drowning cities that once stood proud at the edge of the sea. They move with a terrible finality, dragging skyscrapers beneath their blackened depths, ripping apart bridges as if they were made of paper. The water is filled with debris, ships, buildings, bodies, churned into a chaotic maelstrom as the oceans reclaim the land. And still, the earth shakes. The impact has sent tremors rippling through the planet's crust, triggering earthquakes so vast, so violent, that the very shape of the world is changing. Entire land masses are fracturing, breaking apart along ancient fault lines awakened by the force of the blow. The tectonic plates, once moving at the pace of millennia, are now shifting in moments. Volcanoes are erupting in violent succession, their mouths vomiting molten rock into the already burning sky, adding thick black columns of ash to the chaos. Darkness and fire choking the heavens, swallowing the light. I am struggling to breathe. The air is thick, not just with smoke, but with something worse. Dust, ash, the pulverized remains of everything that once was. The impact has kicked up a cloud of debris so vast it has begun to wrap around the entire planet. The sun is already beginning to vanish behind it, a fading ember smothered by the death rattle of the world. In mere hours, perhaps less, night will fall across the entire earth, and this time, it will not rise again. The fire may rage for days, but the darkness will last for years. The impact winter is beginning. I don't know how much longer I have. The station is barely holding together. The power flickers, the equipment sparking, screens flashing with errors as the last traces of civilization unravel. I don't know if there's anyone left to hear me. I don't know if my voice is reaching anything other than dead air. But I will keep speaking, because someone should remember, someone should tell the story, even if there is no one left to listen. This is what it looks like when a world dies. It is not slow, it is not gentle, it is not a sad, quiet passing in the night. It is violent, it is merciless, it is fire and fury, wind and water, screams and silence in equal measure. I am its last witness. The earth groans beneath me, as if it too is aware of its own impending demise. The impact, those first terrible moments, have reverberated across the globe in ways no one could have anticipated. It is no longer just the cities, the buildings, the roads, or even the people who have suffered. The very planet itself is torn apart, screaming in a chorus of geological convulsions. I can hear it in my ears, the deep rumbling, the grinding of tectonic plates. It's a primal sound, a noise that resonates deep in the bones, reminding us that we, humanity, are merely fleeting beings on a much older, much more violent world. The land itself is shaking. It's as though the earth has suddenly been forced to acknowledge the weight of the catastrophe, and it is rebelling, refusing to be silent any longer. Whole continents are buckling under the strain of the aftershock, massive rifts opening up where once there were smooth plains, entire stretches of land sinking into the earth as if the ground is trying to swallow the very memory of civilization. These are not the gentle tremors we've felt in earthquakes before. No, this is something else. These are the violent convulsions of a planet under duress, a force much older than any of us, something that cannot be reasoned with or calmed. And yet, The land does not only quake, it tears. Rivers of molten lava are coursing through chasms, spilling forth from newly formed fissures. Volcanoes erupt across the planet with terrifying regularity, their fiery breaths unending. Their plumes of smoke stretch into the upper atmosphere, a blanket of ash that chokes out what little sunlight remains, further darkening the world. The flames lick the sky, a hot, oppressive heat that burns away the remnants of life wherever it reaches. Entire forests, once verdant and alive, are now shriveled, scorched husks, burnt into oblivion in an instant. Trees that stood for hundreds of years have been reduced to nothing but a haze of smoke and dust. There are no more rains, no more gentle winds. What remains is an acrid, stifling heat that pushes the air beyond human endurance. The air itself seems thick, heavy with the weight of smoke, sulfur, and ash. Breathing is a chore. It is not simply a matter of drawing in air anymore. Each breath is a struggle, a bitter reminder that the very oxygen we depend on is being stolen away. I can feel my throat tighten with each inhalation, my lungs burning with each breath, but there is no other choice. There is nothing left to do but breathe. The oceans, once a symbol of life and beauty, have turned into vast, roiling pits of destruction. The impact has displaced so much water, it has caused the very structure of the seas to change. Tidal waves, tsunami after tsunami, continue to ravage coastlines across the globe, leaving nothing behind but destruction and death. The waves, huge, monstrous, towering, move with an unnatural speed, devouring everything they touch. Ships, buildings, entire islands are pulled into the depths of the sea, their remnants swallowed by the cold abyss. There is no escape. There is no sanctuary left. The oceans no longer know their place, no longer recognize their boundaries. They have become vengeful, merciless, dragging entire civilizations into their watery tombs. I can hear the crackle of my transmission equipment. The signal is barely holding. I don't know how long it will last. The airwaves are filled with static, the sound of destruction creeping in from every corner of the earth. But I persist, because I know this is the only connection left to whatever small amount of humanity might still be listening. I know that in this final hour, there is nothing I can do to save anyone. But I can at least share the last moments of this world with those few who are still out there, still holding on to life. The firestorms rage on. Entire cities are burning in hellish infernos that leap from building to building, as if the flames are alive, consuming everything in their path with an insatiable hunger. These fires are not the fires of controlled, purposeful destruction. No, these flames are the product of the earth itself, of a world that has turned against its inhabitants, an act of revenge against the life that has plagued it for so long. Everything is catching fire. The forests, the fields, the homes, the remains of civilization. There is no escape from the flames. They consume everything, reducing entire urban sprawls to ash in mere minutes. The landscape is beginning to warp. Mountains are falling apart, being torn asunder by the relentless tremors. Massive cracks form in the earth, wide enough to swallow entire highways, entire cities. It is as if the very face of the planet is coming apart, piece by piece, revealing its molten core for all to see. These are the wounds of a dying world, and they are deep, too deep to heal. And as the flames burn brighter, the fires rage hotter, and the earth tears itself apart, I can feel it. The end is upon us. I can hear the sounds of distant eruptions, see the rolling clouds of ash obscuring the stars. There is no escape. There is no longer a place to run. This is the end of everything, of humanity, of civilization, and of the earth itself. I do not know how long I have left. The station is buckling, the power flickering as the global grid collapses, one region after another. It's all coming apart at once, and I am left alone with the sound of the world's death. The horrors outside the station's walls are beyond anything I can describe. The firestorms, the tsunamis, the earthquakes, these are no longer mere events. They are the face of the earth, staring back at us, showing us the raw power we have tried to control, the forces we have only barely understood. The sun is no more. It has been hidden behind a thick veil of smoke, ash, and particulate matter. What little light remains is dim, a sickly glow that barely illuminates the devastation outside. This is no longer the Earth we once knew. This is something else, something born of destruction and fury. The Earth is not dying quietly. It is screaming, burning, shuddering in agony, dragging everything with it. The world's heartbeat has slowed. The pulse of life is fading, and soon there will be nothing left but the emptiness that follows. And so I speak, even as the world crumbles around me, even as my own voice begins to falter under the weight of despair. I speak because it is all that is left. I speak because the Earth in its final agony deserves to be heard. Even as the planet trembles and the oceans rise, even as the flames consume everything in their path, I will continue to tell the tale of what happened, of what it felt like, of what we have lost. For soon there will be no one left to tell the story. And this is how it ends. The end is nigh. The flickering lights in the station are dimming, struggling to remain alive, just as the last vestiges of humanity are fighting to hold on. But there is no holding back what is coming. I hear the low hum of the backup generator sputtering in the distance, its sound growing fainter by the second. Soon it will fail entirely, and with it, my final connection to what remains of the world. The air is thick with dust now, choking out the last breath of civilization. I feel my own breath grow ragged, each inhale a desperate attempt to stave off the inevitable. The radio waves crackle with static, just as the world is crackling with the sounds of destruction. Somewhere out there, someone may still be listening, clinging to that thread of hope, though I know it is a thread that will soon snap. Outside, the last remnants of the city are falling apart. I can hear it through the walls, the distant sounds of collapse, the crumbling of buildings that once symbolized human achievement, the sound of a world crumbling in on itself. It is no longer the hustle of daily life, the mundane noise of people rushing through their routines. No, this is a death rattle, a final exhalation from a planet that has known too much violence, too much neglect. A planet that is now fighting back against its creators with everything it has. I cannot help but wonder, did we deserve this? The answer comes too late, too bitter to swallow, but I cannot stop asking. The wind outside howls like a banshee. It is not the gentle breeze that once rustled the leaves or carried the scent of the ocean, but a furious, violent force tearing at the land, whipping debris through the streets. The fires continue to rage, fed by the winds, and the smoke is suffocating. It curls its way into the station, creeping under the door, through the windows, into every crack and crevice. I can feel the heat on my skin, but the temperature in the room remains unnaturally cold, the air itself thick with the moisture of fear. The world outside has become an inferno, a battlefield between fire and earth, both raging in their final, chaotic death throes. I take one final look at the map of the world that once sat proudly on the wall. It is no longer accurate. There are no countries now, no borders. The map has become a mere abstraction, a relic of a time that has passed. It is a cruel reminder that humanity's achievements have crumbled to dust, lost in the firestorm of cosmic fury. The asteroid, that silent behemoth from the stars, has delivered its final blow. The Earth is no longer a place of life, a sanctuary for its inhabitants. It is a tomb, a graveyard for every living thing that ever walked, swam, or flew across its surface. But even now, as I sit here, the weight of the silence presses down on me. The station is still transmitting, and I have a responsibility to speak, to report what is happening, to tell the story of this catastrophic end, even though I know that this voice too will soon fade into the static, swallowed up by the destruction outside. It is strange, isn't it, that in the final moments, when there is nothing left to save, when there is nothing left to do but watch as the world dies, we still cling to the need to communicate, to make sense of it all, to understand why we are here, why we lived, and why we must now die. I turn the dial, adjusting the frequency just slightly, though I know it won't matter. The entire grid is crumbling, radio towers are falling, and the airwaves will soon be filled with nothing but the roar of the fires and the tremors of the earth. But still I speak. I speak because I have no other choice. There is nothing left but the words, the sounds that I can still make in the face of total annihilation. In the distance, I can hear the low rumble of another explosion. This one so deep it shakes the ground beneath me. The earth itself is shifting, altering in ways that no human mind could have predicted. Earthquakes are now a constant, with no safe places left to hide. Whole mountains crumble as if they were made of sand. Entire valleys sink into the abyss. I imagine the people who are still out there, those few who might still be alive, running, hiding, searching for any kind of refuge in the madness. But there is no refuge left. The earth has become a war zone, a violent, unrelenting force that does not care who lives or dies. It is no longer about humanity's survival. It is about the survival of the planet itself, and the earth has made its choice. The fires are growing, and the ash continues to fall from the sky like a blackened rain, coating everything it touches with a layer of death. The oceans, once a symbol of life, are now boiling pits, the heat from the impact turning them into cauldrons of destruction. Tsunamis are still crashing across the coasts, pulling entire cities into their depths. Those who could not escape are being swept away in waves of water and fire. There is no chance for rescue, no chance for survival. It is all gone. The radio crackles again. I can barely make out the words. The signal is so weak. I know my time is running out. I can hear the sound of footsteps echoing in the halls. The last survivors of the station, if there are any left, are probably searching for the last of the emergency supplies. But the station is no longer a safe place. It is a tomb, just like everything else. As I sit here, my fingers hover over the controls, unsure whether I should continue or whether the world is already beyond saving. But then I remember what I must do. I must continue, even if my words are the last ones to be spoken into the void. I must let the world hear this, hear the story of what we were, of what we lost. Because even if it is just one person left, one listener still holding on to the fading signal, then it is worth it. It is worth telling the tale of humanity, the tale of our demise, the tale of how we failed to save ourselves. The final breath of the earth is coming, and so I speak. I speak for those who never had the chance to speak. I speak for those who are already lost to the flames and the waves. I speak for the world that was, and for the world that will never be again. The end is here, and this is my final broadcast.